love body horror movies, despite clearly not being the most seasoned in the genre. Big fan of these two, not the biggest fan of this one, and I haven't seen this one yet. Don't roast me, I'll get to it eventually. So when I heard that the director of Raw was making just a straight up body horror movie, because Fight Me Raw didn't feel like a body horror movie and I can't see it as much as other people say it is, I practically busted right then and there. So I finally got around to watching Titane. And it's basically the episode of TLC where the guy f***s his car, but on crack with results. Whatever you're thinking, it is 10 times worse than that. So let's talk about TLC's Car Part 2, the French film edition. The movie starts with a car crash. Next time, maybe you'll keep your seatbelt on, you little shit. The car crash involves a kid with their dad, and the kid ends up getting a metal plate put in their skull. Can't really show it because blood and guts, but here's the aftermath. And here's the aftermath. Yeah, y'all know where this is going, don't ya? Fast forward years later, where the kid, whose name is Alexia, by the way, they don't say that until like 10 minutes into the film, and I don't want to keep calling them the kid, given what I'm about to show you. They're at a car show, which would send Zombie Unicorn into an absolute fit, given that there's car girls.
The company's at E3. It's 2019. Booth babes are nothing anymore. We don't do booth babes. Sexually objectifying women in ways that we don't need to be doing.
We also get a little zoom in on Justine, my beloved from Raw, who, yes, is Justine again from Raw. She's not playing a new character, as she confirms for herself later.
Moi, c'est Justine.
See, told you so. Alexia is shaking ass in a car, being all hot to get the car some attention, and the cars are being filmed similar to like the women through this voyeuristic perspective, which again, further tells us exactly where this movie's gonna be going. We learned that Alexia really doesn't give a fuck about anyone, and that's something shown through her lack of talking to Justine and her reaction with fans asking for pictures and autographs, and her stabbing a creepy, assaulty fan. That's valid though, go off, queen. Because of this, Alexia goes back to the showers to wash off the guy's seezy, mouthy foam juices. And her shower gets interrupted with some banging, which is a hint as to what she'll be doing herself in a second. The banging leads her to a turned on car, literally and figuratively. So she walks up to the car, caresses it, gets inside it, and yeah, she fucks the car. Or the car fucks her. I don't know, they kind of make it look like the car's the one doing everything. Got it jumping up and down like it's in a fucking Cars movie. Good job! We see the aftermath the next day with Alexia having bruises all over her thigh and motor oil leaking out of her coochie, which I can't show, cause coochie. Keep in mind, we are only 17 minutes into this movie. This is the benchmark of you haven't seen anything yet, because it only gets weirder from here on out. It's this next scene that we learn that Alexia and her father don't really have a relationship, as insinuated by the car crash bit, and same goes for her mother. During this bit, we also learn that there is a string of murders going on in the area where Alexia lives. Can you guess who the murderer is? Because I'm starting to think that it's the crazy car girl doing this shit. While hanging out with Justine, Alexia learns that she is indeed pregnant. Like I said, it's only gonna get weirder. And of course, after finding out that she is with child, Alexia has a very normal response to this news. Yeah, that's how we lose Justine. And I'm gonna jump in for a second and just say that this death is absolute bullshit. And I'm not mad because, obviously, the shared name. I'm mad because if you watch the movie Raw, you know for a fact that Justine would not go down like this. You're telling me that the bitch who took off skin from her sister on multiple occasions wouldn't just munch onto Alexia's throat and rip that bitch's jugular out? I call bullshit. It's at this point Alexia kills everyone except one girl in the house, goes back home, and sets all the evidence on fire. And her parents as well. Because who needs them, right? We learn that she's a wanted suspect for murder thanks to the one survivor reporting her. And Alexia makes the most sensible choice to chop off her hair, tape her titties and pregnant stomach, and break her fucking nose to become a missing child we've briefly saw twice in the movie. Because why not, right? This thing couldn't get any weirder. We could just throw shit to the wall, see what sticks. It's at this point that discount Detective Elliot Stabler, the father of the missing child, who they refer to as Captain throughout the movie, but is apparently named Vincent, although they never once call him that. We're just gonna call him Captain though, because they clearly pulled that out of their ass. Comes in to give a yay or nay for Alexia being Adrian. And don't worry, the film covers all its bases and has Detective Stabler over here basically say that he does not want to have this person DNA tested.
Dans tous les cas, on fera un test ADN.
Pourquoi je ferai un test ADN? Vous croyez que je suis pas capable de reconnaître mon fils?
because that's realistic, I guess, and is totally optional. After getting back to the captain's fire station because he thinks they're his long-lost kid after all, we learn how active Captain's gonna be in this because he just barely misses catching Alexia claw at their pregnant, naked body, and locks the bedroom door behind him, clearly not wanting Adrian to go missing again. I don't remember if I mentioned that, but that's the name of the missing kid. Okay, cool. We also learned during this time that Daddy-O is on a massive roid kick. Looking like a mini Joe Rogan if we're being honest. Meaning that this is all gonna be a thing in the movie. A man not wanting to lose his son again and not willing to lose his gains. We later see the captain aggressively try to get Adrian to talk, playing music and doing his little Joker dance and forcing Adrian to dance with him, leading them into a little slappy slap match, and eventually the captain giving Adrian the keys to leave since that's what they've been trying to do since they left the station. The captain, of course, copes in the only way possible, by injecting roids to the point where he just seizes or passes out. I don't know, man, does it look like I use roids? Meanwhile, Alexia gets on a bus with some obnoxious ass dudes and another girl, to which the guys harass the girl instead of Alexia for once, cause, you know, they look like a dude, making Alexia get off the bus and go back to the captain. After seeing him slumped, she tries to kill him, but struggles and inevitably can't, and actually decides to talk to him and keep him alive. Fast forward a bit, cause there's a lot of parts in this movie that are just very dialogue heavy. After the firefighters respond to an emergency, we find out that one of the guys at the station that works with Captain actually knows who Adrian really is, escalating this by actually telling the captain at their little firehouse party, and the captain doesn't listen to them whatsoever. Leading us into one of the weirdest parts of the movie. Following this, the firefighters are out doing their little firefighty thing, and after getting hit, the one firefighter that knows about Adrian's real identity asks him questions to make sure that Captain's good. How many fingers am I holding up? What's my name? And what's Adrian's, like, real name, dude? And then the captain does the most out-of-pocket shit I've seen in a movie in quite some time. The captain grabs a propane tank or something and asks the dude to hold it, saying he'll be right back. In the middle of a massive fire, we see the explosion from Adrian's point of view, and then we get to cut to the captain getting to look at this crispy ass man's body. He's well done. He's crispy. He won't be bothering the captain anymore. After this experience, which I guess was just nothing to the captain because he's clearly fucking traumatized and has been through the ringer to the point where that didn't bother him whatsoever. My coworker just got maimed to shit. I have my son. The captain walks in on Alexia, who's just hurriedly trying to cover up, and the captain says these words that just really stuck with me throughout the rest of the movie.
Je veux pas savoir qui t'es, je m'en fous. T'es mon fils. Et tu seras toujours mon fils. Qui que tu sois. C'est clair?
And once Alexia accidentally reveals they're actually a woman and not Adrian, the captain just helps them cover up. Which makes me feel so sad for this dude because you can clearly tell that he just wants to have this idea that his long-lost son is back in his arms and that his son is home and all that, to the point where he's willing to just cling on to anyone that says, yes, I'm Adrian. It's really sad, heartbreaking shit. Now, anyways, we gotta move on to the Firehouse Rager because vive la France! They're all moshing shirtless, just sweaty boys doing what sweaty boys do best. And Alexia is dragged to the top of some fire trucks to dance, which the guys put on a like super sensual slow song for, and then wonder why Alexia's dance is super sexy. Suddenly, y'all don't want the fruity shit you asked for. And of course, Alexia copes with this the best way she can. So this marks the end game of the movie that we're going to be getting into. If you don't want the ending spoiled for you, you could skip to the next section of this video. I will not be talking about the ending to discuss my final thoughts and like conclusion regarding all this, so if you don't want to know the ending but want to know my thoughts on it, that's the perfect way to do it. However, if you do want to just hear about the ending, buckle up because this is gonna get a little weird, as if this movie wasn't weird to begin with. Alexia starts going into labor, her stomach ripping open more and more due to the baby plate. She somehow makes it to the captain's room telling him that she loves him, which he of course reciprocates, and then does some weird incest but not incest type shit, which of course the captain doesn't fuck with and goes to leave, but only stays because he sees Alexia start puking up motor oil, because that's not normal and I'm guessing he thinks his bitch is a Ford at this point. point. He stays and starts to guide Alexia through her birth, calling them Alexia as she admits her real name to him. And as Alexia makes her final push, her plate bursts through her skin, leaking more motor oil, and she dies as her kid's been born. So not a Ford, because she's not Ford tough. We then cut to the captain mourning their death, but also shushing the child as we learn that the baby is half man and half metal. And that's the end of Titane. No mid-credits scene, no late credits scene. That's it. Now, I want to say that I've seen this movie a couple times now, and I still don't have a firm grasp on how I really feel about it. It's a weird film. It has a lot of pros and a lot of cons. I love how the movie was shot. It's very pretty and just overall very stylized, and the acting's phenomenal. Like, the amount of emotion and feeling Agatha Roussel conveys despite hardly talking is absolutely stellar. But I don't like the fact that it's not as straightforward as Raw is, with like all of its meaning and all of its intention. But there is one thing that I actually do know for sure, and that's that this movie re-solidified the fact that I think that pregnancy is absolutely fucking horrifying. As someone who has the ability to just bear children and all that, I've always found pregnancy to be super scary, just given how quickly your body changes within a matter of months, and just everything that could foreseeably go wrong within that. Literally, it is the real life definition of body horror. You can't convince me otherwise. But that's all I really got from it, other than it just being a very artsy, weird movie. So I decided to see what other people had to say, and by other people, I mean the only other artsy person I saw actually discuss this movie, because I just really wanted to get some perspective, so I turned to the best person around, Halsey.
Where are you? And I'm so sorry.
Yes, that Halsey. Titane was probably the most spectacularly grotesque and bizarrely tender take on gender analysis and attachment theory I've ever seen. Not for a weak stomach or those triggered by gore and body horror, but one of the most awe-inspiring pieces of cinema to date. So, those are some pretty big words that I know absolutely jack about, but while I'm not a film critic, I could at least pretend to be for a little bit to, try to get an idea of what exactly they're saying. Tell you what, I absolutely feel smarter already. I feel like I could say big words and people would just eat that shit up now. Think this is as good as we're gonna get it, so let's keep going. I agree and disagree with this take on the movie and personally have my own view of the film. I heavily agree that it does hit on attachment theory, which is the idea that kids need to bond with a primary caregiver in order to develop normally, socially, and emotionally. We see this throughout the movie, but heavily within the first half, with Alexia having zero attachment to her parents or anyone around her, hence how she's a serial killer and her fondness of cars. But we see her develop an attachment to the captain as she goes to kill him but can't, instead taking care of him, and how she weeps after her session with a fire truck instead of the bliss she showed with the first car. The latter point on gender analysis I can kinda see. Gender analysis being analysis that shows how gender relations affect development problems, but disagree with it being a big plot point considering the only time I saw anything touch on it, to my limited understanding. The hat only does so much. Was the difference of Alexia dressing as Adrian in an environment where she's used to being harassed. Again, I'm not a critic nor a genius in psychology, despite clearly looking the part. So I'm trying to understand this take to the best of my ability. However, I do think that gender did play a big role in this movie, and more specifically nails the idea of wanting to transition and parents kind of accepting, but also kind of not accepting that want to transition. Yeah, I'm going full deep movie reviewer here, so bear with me for a second. My reasoning for this is because of the scene in the movie where the captain tells Alexia that he doesn't care who they are, they'll always be Adrian to them. The language from the father also reminds me of messages that people have openly shared online, or that I know personally, of their parents purposely dead-naming them, misgendering them, and overall not accepting them as being trans. The similarities in language between the captain telling Alexia that she'll always be his son despite the fact that she is clearly not his son, in comparison of you'll always be my son or daughter despite the person openly being trans, it just came off as a parallel that I couldn't stop seeing through all of my viewings. We see this again when Captain covers them up as they accidentally expose themselves in the previous mentioned scene, but come to terms with this and embracing the transition when calling them by their actual name at the end of the movie. I'm sure people can argue the opposite, but that's just my own interpretation of the whole movie and my overall deep critic film analysis. Now let's cut it with the big words and actually address the elephant in the room. I already feel Normaler by the second. Is this movie disturbing? Yes, but also not really. I think it's more so situationally disturbing because yes, there are absolutely scenes that made my skin crawl, and I think anybody who's affected by the same shit I am, example, pregnancy, is going to have the same reaction. Whereas this just might be a normal movie night for some people, and they're typing right now in the comments section that I'm a pussy for being scared of pregnancy. Sorry, I don't watch movies on the disturbing iceberg list for funsies. Some of us don't like vomit or snuff. Just don't want to be on the FBI's most wanted list. And of course, to end it all, would I recommend this movie? Yes, but also maybe. It's a weird film. I told that to my boyfriend before we watched it, and even when we were done, he said that was so out of left field, and I feel like that's going to be a majority of the people who watch this movie's thoughts, that being neither a good nor bad thing. And I feel like the people that liked Raw will probably just like this due to the acting, as well as like just how the film's shot and looks, but may or may not like it because it is still a little bit different from Raw, with how the messaging is just not as straightforward as Raw was, and how they just decided to kill off Raw's main character in the worst, most unreasonable way possible. Hashtag Justine deserved better. Seriously, what the fuck? And that's why I'm torn with having like a hard yes, go watch it, because I still don't have a definitive view of this movie. And this isn't after like one watch, just to be clear, this is after 4. I've watched this movie 4 times and still don't have an exact idea of if I like this or if I don't. The most I can say is if you like the weirdness of Raw, you should definitely give this movie a shot. If you liked the acting and the stylization of Raw, you should give this a shot. This is just a lot more out there than Raw, and a lot more batshit as well. Personally, I prefer Raw to this, and I give this about like a 3.5 out of 5, whereas Raw is like a 5 out of 5 for me. But if you want something you could dig deep into, you're probably really gonna like this movie. So, yeah, welcome to the most inconclusive movie review that'll probably ever exist on YouTube, but still has like a rating to it, but also literally ended with just watch it yourself. Again, I hate that I don't have a definitive opinion on it, but I feel like this movie just changes every time you watch it. But maybe you'll love it, or maybe you'll hate it and give me some new things to consider upon my next viewing, because for some reason, I just keep fucking watching this movie. If you guys like this video, feel free to spare a like down below to feed the algorithm gods, and to just let me know that some people also like these movie videos. And subscribe down below because I have more content coming your way. Next week's gonna be fun, I'll tell you that much. But until next week, consider this a PSA to not fuck your car, and I'll see you guys later.